Hello students, I am your English teacher and today we are going to start chapter 7 of English subject of class 8 and the chapter name is A Visit to Cambridge. A Visit to Cambridge is written by Firdaus Kanga, writer and journalist from Mumbai. He was born with brittle bones that tended to break easily when he was a child. The lesson gives us a glimpse of the meeting between Firdaus Kanga and Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking, one of the greatest scientists of our time, suffered from form of paralysis that confined him to a wheelchair and allowed him to speak only by punching buttons on a computer, which speaks for him in a machine-like voice. Both these men moved around in wheelchairs. It was during Firdaus Kanga's visit to Cambridge that they met each other. Here I am telling you the summary of the chapter. A Visit to Cambridge by Firdaus Kanga begins with him taking a walking tour through Cambridge, and during this tour his guide mentioned that the famous astrophysicist Stephen Hawking lived there. The author had completely forgotten about this, and just as the tour ended, he went to a phone booth to contact him. He was able to talk to Hawking's assistant and explain to him that he had come all the way from India on a wheelchair. The assistant allowed him half an hour with scientists from 3:30 to 4. The writer mentions how people often ask differently abled people to cheer up as if they have a courage account they are too lazy to draw a check on. He feels the only thing that can make you stronger is seeing someone like you achieve something great. Stephen Hawking told him that he had not been brave and this was the only choice he had. Although the writer is of conflicting view, the author was guilty of making the scientist speak, as it took a lot of effort for him to tap on his little switch and find words in his computer. He was a man with a bright mind, but his computerized voice made his thoughts come out as frozen phrases. Stephen mentions that he finds it amusing when people patronize him. The writer then gives a description of Hawking's as to how he looks like three-dimensional version of all his photographs in magazines. First impression of his appearance is shocking, but he is the embodiment of inner glow in a man. He made the author believe in eternal souls and that everything else is just accessory. Hawking thinks that there is nothing good about being disabled, but the writer is of the view that it makes you realize the existence of kindness in the world. Further, upon being asked if he inspires a lot of people makes it any better for Stephen, he answered that it does not. For someone whose body is like claustrophobic room whose walls are getting narrower day by day, it does not make much a difference. The only advice Stephen had to offer to differently abled people is only to focus on things they are good at. The half an hour came to an end and it was time for the writer to leave, but the scientist made him stay. He offered the writer tea and a tour of his garden. His garden was as big as park, but Stephen covered every inch of it in his wheelchair while the writer dodged himself out of his way. They did not talk much in the sun. When it was time to leave, the author touched his shoulder and wheeled out. As he looked back, he could see an embodiment of his bravest self, the one he was moving towards and the one he had believed in for so many years. Now I am explaining the chapter. Look at the highlighted paragraph. Here, the author begins by telling the readers that at some point in life, England only meant Cambridge for him and nothing more. He further remarked that after his meeting with Stephen Hawking, the meaning and relevance of England in his life changed completely. The author mentions that he happened to be on a walking tour through Cambridge when his guide spoke about Stephen Hawking. The guide called him a poor man because he was differently abled. He even told the author that Stephen Hawking now holds the position in the university which was earlier held by Isaac Newton. The author reveals that before the guide had mentioned, he had forgotten that Stephen Hawking, most brilliant and completely paralyzed astrophysicist, the author of one of the biggest bestsellers ever, A Brief History of Time, lived here. Look at this highlighted paragraph. Once the walking tour came to an end, the author hurried to the nearest phone booth and stretched the cord to the extent of almost tearing it so that it could reach him outside the booth because he was on a wheelchair. He called Stephen Hawking's residence where his assistant answered the call. The author introduced himself as someone who came all the way from India, which the assistant must have taken in the literal sense that he travelled all the way from India on a wheelchair to write about his travelling experience in Britain. The author explained that he needed to see Professor Hawking even if it meant only for 10 minutes. But the assistant gave him a 30-minute slot from 3:30 to 4 for the next day. After that, the author began feeling weak at that moment. He relates how one is constantly told to be brave and cheerful when you grow up being differently able, as if it were that easy. He mentions that people think one who is different is just lazy to draw a check on their courage account. In such a situation, the only thing that gives you courage and strength is seeing people like you do something big. It is only then you know there is hope and possibility which makes you go beyond your limits and imagination. Now look at this highlighted paragraph. Here it means the next afternoon when he went to see him, Stephen Hawking told him that he had not been brave. He spoke in his disembodied computer voice that he had no other option. The author wanted to reply that living so creatively even with his disabilities was a brave choice, but he refrained from doing so as his guilt took over every time he pushed Stephen Hawking to respond by talking to him. He spoke by finding the words on his computer and then tapping a little switch in his hand with the only remaining movement left in his pale and long fingers. He would get easily fatigued and would shut his eyes every now and then in frustration. The author mentions how he could feel Hawking's pain as the thoughts in his intensely active and vibrant mind came out emotionless and stiff as a corpse. Later, the author expresses how most people think that people with different abilities are constantly sad and miserable, but as far as he is talking about himself, it's not true. He asked Hawking if it was true for him or was he laughing on the inside. Later, it took Hawking almost 3 minutes to respond. He finds it entertaining when people are only kind to him because of different abilities. The author further asked him if he feels irritated when people like him come and keep him away from his work, to which he answered from yes. After that, Stephen smiled his one-way smile, not giving into emotions, but the author knew for sure that he was looking at one of the most beautiful and wonderful men in the world. Now here the author mentions how the first glance of Hawking startles you because he is motionless, just as photograph. It seems that all his photos in magazines and newspapers have become three-dimensional, but still, as you notice him further, his head is turned sideways limply. The upper part of the body is shrunk inside his dull blue shirt and legs weak. His eyes appear as if they can speak. They are still yet trying to speak something of great significance and urgency. Although what they are saying is hard to decipher, having looked at him shakes you up completely because your eyes have something completely unexpected. After that, when you see him, it appears as if he is like a lantern whose walls are so worn out that you only see the light inside. Yes, before you is the inner glow of a man. It makes you feel that the body is irrelevant and exists only like a case made of shadows. It even makes the author a non-believer in eternal souls. One realizes that a man is no more than that. Everything else is just not essential. Now the author asked Stephen what according to him was the best thing about being differently abled, to which Hawking replied that he did not find anything good about it. The author then expressed that he thinks it makes you discover that there is so much kindness in the world. Stephen agreed, but due to his voice synthesizer, The author could not decipher the excitement behind his answers, as there is a disadvantage that comes with it, that it conveys no inflection, shade, or tone. At last, the author mentions that each time he adjusted himself in his chair or had a look at his wristwatch to track time, he wanted to make sure that no single minute of the meeting went wasted. He adds that he was relieved and happy about the limited possibilities his body had to offer. In that moment, it almost did not matter to the author that he would never be able to walk or even stand, for that matter. Now look at the first paragraph. Here the author confessed to him how Stephen had inspired him beyond limits, and he was sure that he must have inspired a lot others. He asked if this fact made it any better for Stephen. Stephen said that it did not. On hearing his answer, the author felt foolish for even asking such a question. This is because Stephen Hawking feels when your own body is like a very small and suffocating room whose walls are getting closer day by day. The fact that people out there are happy that you are alive does not make much of a difference for you. Then the author asked Stephen if he would like to give a piece of advice to other differently abled people which would help make life a little easier for them. Stephen said that they should focus on their strengths and what they are good at. According to Stephen, things like Olympics for the differently able are a waste of time. The author got the gist of what Stephen meant because he had spent years learning to play a Spanish guitar, which was larger than his own size, and how he unstringed it one night very happily. The 30 minutes came to an end, and the author smiled as he said, "I think I have annoyed you enough," and continued to thank him for his time, but was interrupted by Stephen, who instead asked him to stay. He waited for Stephen to say something next, and he offered the author some tea and a chance to show his garden. Even though the garden was as big as a park, Stephen showed him every inch and corner of it on his motorized wheelchair. The author tried not to come in his way. They could not converse a lot during that time as the letters on his screen disappeared in the glare. It felt as if the sun made him silent. Now look at the last paragraph. An hour passed and it was time to leave. The author did not know what to do as he left, as he could not kiss him or cry either. Thus he touched his shoulder and went out into the summer evening in his wheelchair. The author knew Stephen was waving when he actually was not, as he looked back. The author expresses how glancing at Stephen was like looking at his bravest self, the one he was moving towards and the one he had believed in for so many years. He was well aware that his journey was over for now in England. So students, here our chapter is completed. Read and revise it once again. Thank you.